Assalamu alaikum. What's going on, guys? I hope you're all doing well. As you can see by the title of this video, this is going to be the story of how I came to Islam, or my journey to Islam. I'm going to call it part one because converting to Islam, it's a lifestyle change. So there's lots of different aspects. So I don't want this video to be too long, so I'll just talk about how I came to learn about Islam and how I came about converting. So basically, I'll tell you a bit about my history. So I was born into a Christian family, and I went to a Christian school all the way from junior kindergarten all the way until grade 12. And you know, we were pretty devout Christians. We went to church every Sunday. We went to church for any sort of like milestones, like weddings, or holidays like Christmas and Easter and whatnot. So I know a lot about Christianity, and everyone I know growing up was Christian, or even now still is Christian. When I was about 15, 16 years old, I started to question Christianity, mainly because I was a little bit creeped out by the statues in the, like, so I don't know if you've ever been into a church, but if you have, you'll realize there's statues, there's like, that are all over the church, like the Jesus on the crucifix and whatnot. So it's a little graphic, and I don't know, it made me very uncomfortable, but you know, Christians believe that Jesus is God, so obviously they're going to have stuff like that inside of their place of worship. So that was, you know, I had questions about that, and I liked a lot of things about Christianity. I liked the Ten Commandments, and you know, how you're supposed to be a good person and whatnot. Like all that stuff was good, but it didn't feel complete to me. Something was missing, and I just started to not care too much about religion in general when I was a teen. Mainly because lots of things happened in my life where I started to question God's existence, or not God's existence, but like why certain things happen, and I didn't really see why, you know, why people get cancer, or why people die very young and whatnot, why there are bad people on earth and whatnot. Like, if there's a God, why wouldn't he just make everyone good, right? But we're all made with a free will, right? So some people are going to go by the devil, and some people are going to go by God, and we need to realize these things. So anyways, I knew about those things, but then I decided I didn't want to go to church anymore. And so I stopped going to church and got into lots of different fights with my parents because they, you know, it was an every week thing. Every Sunday we would go. And so I would, you know, be like, no, I have too much homework or whatnot. I would make excuses. And anytime I did go, it was only to make my parents happy, which in my opinion is probably, that's worse, right? You should go for God. You shouldn't go to make anyone happy. You should go for yourself, and you go for God. So anyways, when I was in post-secondary, I learned a little bit, like when I was in university, I learned a little bit about Islam because there were dawah groups at, or dawah clubs at my school. So they would be handing out little Qur'ans or little pamphlets. And so those groups would come and give dawah to people. And I learned a little bit about Islam at that point, but I wasn't really, I don't think it was my time to come to Islam yet. I was just too consumed in that post-secondary life where you're partying, you know, you're spending late nights, like studying and whatnot, and you're just always busy because you're trying to do good in school, and maybe you're working or whatnot. So for me, that was the case. I was just always busy, and I didn't want to make time for it, and it wasn't like at the top of my list of things on my mind. I literally I didn't care much for it, sadly. But yeah, I remember I would get asked a couple of questions from like my friends in general. We would just talk about, you know, is there a God? You know, is there something up there that created all of this? What's the reason of life and whatnot? So I would have those type of deep conversations pretty often with some of my friends, and it would get me thinking about life and about like why we were created and what happens afterwards and whatnot. One thing I know for sure, even though I started to lose my faith in Christianity, one thing I knew for sure, and that was always ongoing my entire life, was that I knew that there was a God. I knew that there was something almighty, something really, really, like, we can't grasp. It's so amazing, and it created all of us, earth, animals, plants, everything, because everything is just is made perfectly and made like no human could ever create something like how God creates something. I always knew that. I always knew that there was a God. I always believed that there was just one God. So I learned a little bit about Islam, a little bit more about Islam when I met my husband. So I met my husband about 5 years ago, and I converted about 2 years ago. So when we met, we worked together and we were friends, and he didn't talk about it a lot, but when he did mention it, I could tell that he was very passionate about it. I can tell that it was that when he would refer to the Quran or to Hadith, that what I was actually hearing when I would take in what he was saying, I was amazed. I was kind of like, wow, that's actually written in the Quran. Or when he would talk to me about how Christians believe that Jesus is God, but in the Quran it says that he's not, he's just a prophet. So I was like, okay, so you guys believe in Jesus too? And he's like, yeah. He's like, we have to believe in Jesus to be Muslim. And I'm like, oh, cool, okay. And so he told me about, like, Noah and whatnot, and I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. We have Noah too. And so I was kind of like, okay, this is pretty interesting. And so after a while, me and him got married. We had a child, and when I was pregnant, he told me, our child has to be Muslim. So I can marry someone who's not Muslim, but like someone who's Christian. Like, I can marry you, you're Christian, but our child has to be Muslim. And I was like, okay, cool, no problem. I have no problem with that, because I didn't really practice Christianity anyway, so I was like, okay, whatever. But a part of me was like, I want to know what Muslims believe, so I know, what my children are going to believe in and whatnot. So I was curious. I picked up a Quran. I downloaded a Quran on my phone, and I would read from it. It was a year span, or a year and a half, when I started to research Islam. I was reading the Quran. I was watching lectures on YouTube. I was just reading stuff online and just trying to educate myself, because I wanted to know more about it. And what I found was amazing. I mean, the proofs in the scientific proofs inside of the Quran are amazing. Like, I mean, I'll make a few videos of things that I find in the Quran that, like, I mean, the whole thing amazes me, but I mean, I'll talk about specific things. But basically, let's just say I read the Quran and I fell in love. I literally was amazed. I was like, this is the book of the rules and the guidelines of how to live your life. This is the book that, it just made so much sense to me, and it resonated with me that it's the truth. I knew in my heart when I was reading it, like, I would feel it in my heart, like, this is true, this is real. I don't know, it's just this feeling, this overwhelming feeling inside that, like, this is what I've been searching for. I was, something was filling inside of my heart, and, I think it was just God opening my heart and opening my eyes to the beauty of Islam. And, yeah, I fell in love. I started to read more about hadiths and about hijab, because I knew that, it's mandatory if you're a woman, if you're an Islamic woman, and you've hit past puberty, that you need to wear hijab. You need to cover your hair, cover your chest, whatnot, and be modest, not just in what's on your head, but just in your actions and whatnot. So I thought that was beautiful. I thought that was great that, like, you didn't have to be seen by your beauty, because obviously we're all created beautiful, and people do stare and whatnot. So it makes people not think about they think about more about your character than about your beauty, which is, I think that's great. I love that. And so, yeah, I mean, I fell in love with the idea of hijab and whatnot. So I'll post about my hijab story in another video. But yeah, so a year and a half later, I went to my husband's family came to visit during the Christmas break. So I live in Canada, so lots of people are off work during this time. So his family from the States came and visited, and during the time they were here, I mean, they were the only Muslims that I knew, just his family. Everyone else I know is Christian. So I got to see a lot of what Muslims are like in life by living with him. You know, they'd be praying. They were so like, oh my goodness, alhamdulillah, mashallah, they're so nice. They're so nice to me, even though I wasn't Muslim. They were so nice to me. I would ask questions and they'd answer my questions if they knew. If they didn't know the answers, they would search for it, and like we'd look into it together, and it was awesome. Like, they're so supportive. Alhamdulillah, I'm so happy that like his family was so nice to me and like took me in like their own daughter. It was really great. So I thank them a lot for that. But yeah, like my nanabu, or my husband's grandfather, we call him nanabu. So nanabu got us tickets to the Riz convention, which is a convention. It's called Rising the Islamic Spirit. It's a convention that happens in Toronto. I think it happens in other places too, but this happens in Toronto usually every around like Christmas time. And it's a 3-day event where people, Islamic scholars or speakers, come and they speak about Islam. They have certain topics that they talk about. So he got us tickets to it, and that was the weekend that I started to wear hijab. And this was before I even converted, just because I kind of wanted to feel what it was like, and like it was pretty cool. I'll talk about that in my other video. I'm sorry I keep bringing it up, but I'll talk about that in my other video. At the end of the day, I learned so much at that Riz convention. My heart and eyes opened up. I cried so much at that convention because, you know, it felt like home. It felt like I was finally coming home. All this information that I was learning was just making so much sense to me, and I felt in my heart that it was right. So maybe a week after Riz, I decided, you know, what am I waiting for? Why didn't I convert yet? You know, I totally believe it. I believe La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah. I believe God. There's only one God, and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him, is the last and final messenger. So I told my husband I want to convert to Islam, and he was very happy. I don't know. I guess he maybe saw it coming because he knew I was looking into it, but he was happy that I actually wanted to go and take my shahada and whatnot. So he came on that Friday. He came, his aunt came, Nanabu came to witness, and it was cool. I went to the masjid and told them I wanted to convert. They asked me a couple of questions about Islam, which I didn't really expect, but they are asking me like, just do I know the 5 pillars of Islam, and asked me questions just to make sure I knew what I was getting myself into. I knew about Islam, and that it was something that I wanted to do. So I thought it was pretty cool. So they asked me questions and I answered them, and he said, okay, so you have to repeat after me. And I said the Shahada in Arabic, and then I said it in English, and I felt like a new person. And he literally was like, so pretty much all your sins are forgiven. Anything that you've done in the past is forgiven, and you're kind of like a baby. You start a new slate, and I thought that was cool. I could start everything anew and whatnot. So it was exciting. They gave me a Janmas, like a prayer mat. They gave me a Quran. So it was the first Quran that I had a paperback of, because I was reading, as I said, I was just reading from an app on my phone. So I never actually had a book, even though I lived with Muslims. I never, like, all the Qurans that they have are just all Arabic. There's nothing with English in it. So I was like, that's why I downloaded it. But that was the first Quran that I had. I had the Arabic writing on one side, and then right beside it was the English transliteration, so I can kind of look at it. Yeah, it was cool. They gave me some books about Hadith and a couple of other books, so it was really nice of them. And yeah, I was really happy and I felt at home. And that was the day. It was January 3rd, 2014. Yes, because it's 2016 now. Yeah, so yeah, that was the day that I took my Shahada, and that was 2 years ago. As I said, I'm learning so much every day. I try my best to keep on learning. But yeah, that's how I came to Islam. Tune in, subscribe to me, because I'm going to make a couple more videos in relation to converting, like lifestyle changes, things that I found in the Quran that I loved, you know, people that I listened to, lectures that I watched and whatnot. I'll make a couple different videos in regards to it, because there's, when it comes to converting to Islam, there's so many things to learn, and it's just like, it's almost like overwhelming, but like, inshallah, we'll all get there. You know, I have so much to learn still. I just recently learned how to pray, and like memorize what I'm saying when I'm praying, and now I have to kind of understand what I'm saying, because I can say it in Arabic, but I don't know fully what I'm saying in English if I'm going to translate it. There's lots of information that you need to learn, and let's just continue learning. Let's read some more books and understand things. So if you're a new convert, comment below and let me know if you have any questions, or if there's anything that we can learn off each other, or you can email me or whatnot. That'd be cool. I'd love that. Okay, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on my next video.